Listen carefully. Wealth doesn't belong to the ones who chase it. Wealth belongs to the ones who can walk away from it. The richest people on earth don't grip, force, or beg, they flow. Because true abundance responds to detachment, not desperation. You've been taught to hustle harder, push more, panic when things don't move fast enough. But here's the truth you were never told. The moment you stop clinging, life starts giving. In this audiobook, you will unlearn the mindset of scarcity and install the state of effortless receiving. This is the blueprint the wealthy live by, without ever saying it out loud. Let's begin.
Chapter: Stop chasing. Start allowing. You've been told your whole life to go get it, to chase success, to run harder than everyone else. But nobody warned you about the hidden cost of chasing. Nobody told you that chasing comes from fear. Nobody told you that chasing broadcasts one thing to your subconscious: I don't have it, and that is the problem. That is the block. That is the reason the wealth, the opportunity, the breakthrough you want keeps slipping away. Because when you chase, you confirm that you lack. And whatever you confirm, your subconscious multiplies. This chapter is here to flip your internal script, to break the pattern of fear-driven action, to shift you from forcing to flowing. Because here's the truth you were never taught. Wealth moves toward.com. You attract what you are, not what you chase. Remember that. Say it again. You attract what you are, not what you chase. That's the key. Chasing comes from fear. Let's start with the root. Chasing is not ambition. Chasing is not discipline. Chasing is fear wearing the mask of hard work. When you chase, you're telling life, I don't trust you. You're telling yourself, I'm not enough yet. You're telling your future, you better hurry before I lose everything. Fear creates frantic energy. Frantic energy creates misalignment. Misalignment creates resistance. And resistance blocks everything you claim you want. Think about your own life. Think about the moments when you needed something too badly. The job you were desperate for, the person you wanted to impress, the opportunity you clung to. Almost every time, it slipped away. Why? Because desperation is tension. Tension communicates lack. Lack repels abundance. You may think you're doing everything right. You may believe you're working hard. But on an energetic level, on a subconscious level, you're pushing the very thing you desire away. You have a choice. You can keep feeding fear, or you can start building certainty. That's the key. Allowing comes from certainty. Allowing is not passive. Allowing is powerful. Allowing is rooted in identity, in the quiet, grounded belief that what you want is already aligned with you. When you allow, you release tension. When you allow, you operate from sufficiency. When you allow, you move as though abundance is inevitable. And the subconscious loves inevitability. The subconscious responds to certainty. The subconscious rearranges your world to match the identity you repeatedly affirm. Allowing does not mean sitting still. It means acting without fear, acting without pressure, acting without the internal voice whispering, please, 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 let this work. Allowing is acting from calm, and wealth moves toward.com. You attract opportunities when you stop suffocating them. You attract solutions when you stop demanding them. You attract success when you stop chasing approval. This isn't magic. This is psychology. This is identity. This is the inner wiring of your nervous system and subconscious mind. You have a choice, to chase out of fear, or to move with certainty. That's the key. The real-world example you've already seen. Let's make this brutally simple. Look at the job market. Who gets hired? Not the person who begs. Not the person who says, I really, really need this job. Not the person radiating panic. It's the person who walks in relaxed. The person who knows their value. The person who isn't shaking internally because they tied their entire future to one interview. Hiring managers feel energy. People feel energy. Life responds to energy. The calm candidate creates trust. The chasing candidate creates doubt. This happens everywhere. The person desperately trying to get into a relationship, they get ignored. The person who is grounded, secure, focused on their mission, they become magnetic. The entrepreneur begging for clients, they get passed over. The entrepreneur who operates with certainty, clients come to them. The pattern is consistent because the principle is universal. You attract what you are, not what you chase. You've seen this. You've lived this. Now it's time to understand it. Now it's time to control it. You have a choice. That's the key. Why desperation blocks opportunities. Desperation hijacks your nervous system. It puts your brain in survival mode. And a brain in survival mode cannot create, cannot see solutions, cannot think strategically. When you chase, you create tunnel vision. You count only one outcome, you cling to it, you worship it, and in doing so, you close every other door life is trying to open for you. You think you're being focused, but you're being blind. You think you're being committed, but you're being restricted. You think holding on tighter will bring you closer, but it pushes everything further away. Detachment is not losing interest. Detachment is refusing to operate from fear. You have a choice to constrict or to expand, to fear or to trust, to chase or to allow. That's the key. How to shift from chasing to allowing. Let's bring this down to actionable practice. 1. Stop trying to control outcomes. Start controlling identity. Don't chase the result. Calibrate the self-image. Who would you be if abundance was normal for you? Act from that identity now. Walk from that posture now. You don't need their permission. You just need alignment. 2. Replace desperation with direction. Chasing is frantic. Allowing is focused. Set the intention. Move with discipline. Release the pressure. That's the key. 3. Practice calm as a wealth skill. Calm is not natural for most people. It is trained. Breathe before acting. Respond instead of reacting. Remind yourself daily. Wealth moves toward. Calm. Repeat it until your subconscious believes it. Point 4. Detach from speed. Anchor into inevitability. The fastest way to manifest nothing is to rush everything. Stop demanding timing. Start trusting inevitability. Your subconscious operates on belief, not deadlines. You have a choice. Start choosing like someone who already has what they want. That's the key. Chasing is fear. Allowing is identity. And identity is what shapes your destiny. You attract what you are, not what you chase. And when you finally understand that, you stop forcing life, and life starts responding to you. You've learned how to stop chasing. Now it's time to understand the deeper shift that makes wealth inevitable. Chapter: Your attachment is the ENMYU. Don't fail because you're unskilled. You don't fail because you're unlucky. You fail because you grip too tightly. Attachment is the silent enemy of wealth. It's the mental tightness that suffocates everything you're trying to build. It's the emotional pressure that ruins your decisions, blinds your intuition, and blocks the flow of opportunities trying to reach you. You think you need to control everything. You think holding on makes you strong, but in reality, the tighter you grip, the less you receive. Because wealth doesn't flow into clenched fists. Wealth flows into open space. Remember that. Let it repeat in your mind. Wealth repels mental tightness. Wealth moves where there is room. And right now, the biggest blockade in your life isn't your effort, or your intelligence, or your circumstances. It's your attachment. Attachment is a cage. Say it again. Attachment is a cage. That's the key. Attachment creates pressure, and pressure sabotages you. Most people don't understand the emotional mechanics of wealth. They think failure comes from lack of skill, but failure usually comes from emotional pressure. When you're attached to a specific outcome, you squeeze your own mind shut. You stop seeing possibilities. You panic. You rush. You force. You act from fear, not certainty. And anytime you act from fear, you create the wrong outcome. You say you want success, but the truth is, you want control. That's the real addiction. That's the core issue. But here's the paradox. The more control you try to exert, the more you lose control. Because tightness collapses your thinking. Tightness shuts down creativity. Tightness disconnects you from the calm, clear mindset that real wealth requires. You have a choice. Become imprisoned by your attachments, or free yourself. That's the key. Attachment is a cage. The cage isn't external. The cage is internal, and you built it. You built it every time you said, I need this to work. I have to get this result. If this doesn't happen, I'm done. You chained yourself to a single path. You closed every other door. You told life exactly how it must unfold, and in doing so, you blocked life from unfolding the way it naturally would. Attachment is a cage because it confines your thinking. Attachment is a cage because it makes you react instead of respond. Attachment is a cage because it convinces you that without a specific outcome, you are nothing. And when you believe that, you operate from panic. You operate from scarcity. You operate like someone drowning. Loosen your grip. Say it again. Loosen your grip. You don't need their permission. You don't need certainty from the outside world. You need certainty from within. That's the key. The investor example. Proof that attachment destroys wealth. Let's talk about investors, not the fantasy success stories, the real ones. The average investor loses money. Why? Because they are attached to every rise and fall of the market. They panic sell when things dip. They overreact when things rise. They cling to every movement like their life is on the line. Their attachment destroys them. It makes them buy high and sell low, the exact opposite of wealth-building behavior. But the great investors, the ones who multiply their wealth over decades, they detach. They don't panic. They don't chase. They don't cling. They understand that attachment is fear. They understand that emotional pressure ruins logical decisions. They understand that growth requires room, and room requires calm. They let the market breathe. They let their strategy breathe. They let time work in their favor. And that's the model you must follow in every area of your life. Stop panic selling your dreams. Stop reacting to every dip in your progress. Stop gripping outcomes so tightly that you strangle your own potential. Loosen your grip. Attachment is a cage. Wealth flows into open space. That's the key. How attachment blocks your subconscious. Your subconscious is always listening. It obeys your emotional state more than your words. And when you attach yourself to an outcome, your subconscious hears one message. I don't have it yet. I don't trust it will come. That is the vibration of lack. That is the frequency of scarcity. That is the exact signal that repels wealth. Because your subconscious does not respond to hope. It responds to identity. And attachment reveals your true identity. Someone who doubts. Someone who fears. Someone who grips tightly because they don't feel safe. You can't fake safety. You can't fake trust. You can't fake Tom. You either embody it or you don't. You have a choice. Choose to embody security. Choose to embody trust. Choose to embody openness. That's the key. The solution, detach without disconnecting. Detachment is not giving up. Detachment is not laziness. Detachment is not whatever happens. Detachment is emotional freedom. It's the ability to act without fear. It's the ability to desire without desperation. It's the ability to pursue without pressure. Here's how you start. 1. Create space between effort and expectation. Do the work, but stop demanding immediate results. Stop attaching your self-worth to outcomes. You don't need their permission. You need your discipline. 2. Practice not. When something doesn't go your way, pause. Don't panic, sell your dreams. Hold your emotional line. You have a choice, respond. Don't react. 3. Remove the if this doesn't happen, I'm done mentality. That mindset is a cage. Replace it with, if not this path, a better one. That's the posture of abundance. That's the identity of someone who wins. 4. Leave room for life to surprise you. Your plan is not the only plan. Your timeline is not the only timeline. Loosen your grip. Let opportunities come from directions you cannot predict. When you loosen your grip, you rise. The moment you stop suffocating your goals, they breathe. The moment you stop clinging, you grow. The moment you release attachment, you become magnetic, because a calm mind thinks clearly. A clear mind acts strategically. A strategic mind wins consistently. Attachment is the enemy. Openness is the path. You have a choice. That's the key. You've learned how attachment creates pressure, how pressure sabotages clarity, and how clarity is the foundation of wealth. You've learned that wealth needs room to flow, and room only appears when you loosen your grip. Now, it's time to go deeper. If attachment is the enemy, then trust is the weapon.
Chapter 3. Detachment is confidence in action. Detachment is not weakness. Detachment is not indifference. Detachment is not, I don't care. Detachment is confidence in its purest form. Detachment is the highest expression of self-belief. Detachment is the moment you stop gripping outcomes because you finally trust yourself. You don't release control because you're careless. You release control because you're certain. That's the key. When you detach, you're not stepping back. You're stepping into your power. You're telling the world, I don't need anything from you to feel complete. Confidence doesn't chase. Say it again. Confidence doesn't chase. Walking away is leverage. Say that again too. Walking away is leverage. This chapter is your wake-up call, because most people confuse neediness for effort, tension for ambition, pressure for passion. They cling because they don't trust, and every time they cling, they weaken themselves. Detachment is the opposite. Detachment is strength. Detachment is clarity. Detachment is power in motion. Detachment means you trust your path. The real reason you attach yourself to outcomes is simple. You don't trust your path. You don't trust your capability. You don't trust your own ability to create more opportunities if one falls through. You grip tightly because you think this is your only chance. You cling because you think resources are limited. You chase because you fear losing. But that mindset is scarcity in disguise. It's insecurity pretending to be ambition. When you detach, you flip the script. You start behaving like someone who knows there are always more opportunities, more deals, more relationships, more ways to win. You operate like someone who knows they can rebuild, restart, reinvent, and still rise. That's confidence. That's certainty. That's self-trust. And that's the key. Detachment says, I'm fully committed, but I'm not desperate. I want this, but I don't need this. I'm giving my best, but I'm not gripping the outcome. You have a choice. You can live from fear, or you can live from trust. That's the key. Detachment is power because it changes the energy. When you are attached, you leak power. You become reactive. You overthink. You start performing for the outcome instead of performing from your identity. But when you detach, your energy changes. Your posture changes. Your presence changes. People can feel it. Opportunities can feel it. Life responds to it. Because detachment removes the pressure. And pressure is what blocks consistency, clarity, and execution. Think about it. The people who excel under pressure aren't actually feeling pressure. They're calm, they're grounded, they're detached. They execute because they trust their skill. Confidence doesn't chase. Confidence acts. Confidence shows up fully without gripping the result. That's the energy you must cultivate. That's the identity that attracts wealth. You don't need their permission. You need your discipline. That's the key. Example: high-level negotiators win because they can walk away. Let's break it down with a real-world example. High-level negotiators, top executives, elite deal-makers, powerful leaders, they all share one trait. They can walk away at any moment. And that's why they win. They don't show up desperate. They don't show up emotional. They don't show up attached. They walk into the room knowing that if this deal collapses, they have 10 more lined up. They walk in knowing their value. They walk in knowing they don't need approval, permission, or validation. Walking away is leverage. Say it again. Walking away is leverage. That's the key. When you're willing to walk away, you shift the power dynamic instantly. You stop negotiating from fear. You start negotiating from certainty. You stop reacting. You start choosing. And here's the irony. The person who cares the least always holds the most power. Not because they're cold, but because they're confident. Confidence doesn't chase. Confidence doesn't cling. Confidence doesn't beg. Confidence knows, if not this, something better. If not now, later. If not here, somewhere else. You have a choice. Operate like the negotiator who needs the deal, or operate like the negotiator who knows they are the deal. That's the key. Detachment sharpens your decisions. When you're attached, your mind becomes foggy. You start imagining what you could lose instead of focusing on what you could gain. You overanalyze, overthink, and overreact. You rush, you force, you fold under pressure. But when you detach, everything sharpens. Your mind becomes still, your thinking becomes precise, your choices become deliberate. Because you're no longer operating from anxiety, you're operating from strategy. Detachment creates clarity. Clarity creates leverage. Leverage creates results. It's not about anxiety, it's about discipline. It's not about fear, it's about certainty. It's not about chasing, it's about aligning. That's the key. What detachment looks like in real life. Let's make this actionable. Here's what detachment looks like. 1. You stop trying to convince people to choose you. Whether it's a job, a relationship, or an opportunity, if someone hesitates, you don't panic. You don't prove. You don't beg. You simply say, either you see the value or you don't. Confidence doesn't chase. 2. You set boundaries without fear. You stop worrying about losing people. You stop worrying about upsetting others. You don't need their permission to protect your peace. Walking away is leverage. 3. You make decisions without emotional noise. You choose based on values, not insecurity. You choose based on direction, not fear. You choose based on identity, not attachment. That's discipline. 4. You let results unfold without micromanaging. You show up fully, you execute consistently, and then you release. You loosen your grip. You allow the process to work. That's the key. 5. You stop tying your worth to outcomes. Wins don't inflate you. Losses don't destroy you. You remain centered. You remain grounded. You remain you. That's confidence in action. Detachment makes you magnetic. People chase what runs away. People respect what stands firm. People admire what doesn't need validation. Detachment makes you magnetic because it signals inner security. It signals stability. It signals emotional maturity. It signals that your value is not for negotiation. You have a choice. Either broadcast desperation or broadcast certainty. Confidence doesn't chase. Walking away is leverage. Say it until it becomes your nature. Closing transition. You've now understood the truth. Detachment isn't apathy. Detachment is self-trust. Detachment is confidence. Detachment is power. And when you combine detachment with emotional stability, you become unstoppable. Now that you understand the posture of confidence, let's move to the inner state that multiplies it. Chapter 4. Scarcity is learned, abundance is allowed. Scarcity didn't start with you. It was taught to you. It was handed to you. And for most people, it becomes the invisible script running their entire life. You weren't born afraid of money. You weren't born feeling unworthy of opportunity. You weren't born thinking life is hard and success is rare. Someone taught you that. Society reinforced it. And now you carry it Allah Ilahi Salam if it's a fact. But hear me clearly. Scarcity is a story. Abundance is a decision. That's the key. That's the shift. That's the moment your life changes. Because scarcity is not the truth. It's only the first story you ever heard. The programming you never chose. You grew up absorbing beliefs that weren't yours. Maybe you heard, money doesn't grow on trees. Or, people like us don't get rich. Or, be grateful and stop wanting more. These phrases weren't warnings. They were programming. You didn't choose scarcity. You inherited it. And when you inherit a belief, you stop questioning it. You build your entire identity around it. You live inside a cage but think you're walking freely. You make decisions based on what you think is possible, not what is possible. This is why two people with the exact same salary can live completely different realities. One is constantly drowning, constantly stressed, constantly on edge. Why? Because their mind is programmed for lack. The other can save, invest, grow, and expand, even with the same paycheck. Why? Because their mind is programmed for enough. It's never about the numbers. It's always about the narrative. Scarcity is a story. Abundance is a decision. Your subconscious is running the show. Let's get direct. You don't behave based on what you know. You behave based on what you believe. You can read books, watch videos, and repeat affirmations until your throat dries out. But if your subconscious believes there's never enough, then you will sabotage every opportunity. You'll push away money. You'll overspend to match the identity of someone who never has enough. You'll avoid risks because you fear losing the little you think you have. You'll cling to toxic situations because you're convinced better doesn't exist for you. Scarcity becomes your default operating system. And unless you uninstall it, your life will always reflect it. You have a choice. You always have a choice. But you must make the choice consciously. Your subconscious controls 95% of your behavior. If that 95% is programmed for survival, fear, and limitation, guess what your outcomes will be? More survival, more fear, more limitation. Not because you're incapable, not because the world is unfair, but because you are living a story someone else wrote for you. Scarcity is a story. Abundance is a decision. The illusion of not enough. When you operate from scarcity, everything feels urgent, desperate, and heavy. You cling, you chase, you grasp, you hoard. You say yes when you should say no. You stay quiet when you should speak up. You hold on to people who drain you because you think someone better won't show up. Scarcity creates panic. Panic creates bad decisions. Bad decisions create a life that confirms the original belief. There's never enough. This is the loop you must break. Because abundance does not come from having more. Abundance comes from believing you can create more. Let me say that again. Abundance does not come from having more. Abundance comes from believing you can create more. That's the key. When you believe you can create, you stop clinging to what you have. You stop fearing loss. You stop chasing outcomes. You start trusting your ability to generate, attract, and expand. And that trust is what unlocks everything. The real difference between scarcity and abundance. Let's go back to the example. Two people, same salary, different beliefs. Person A says, I must protect what I have. I might lose it. I can't risk it. They shrink. They play small. Their world becomes tight, predictable, and suffocating. Person B says, I can grow this. I can expand this. I can multiply this. So they learn new skills. They seek opportunities. They meet new people. They think beyond their limitations. The difference is not opportunity. The difference is identity. Scarcity is an identity. Abundance is an identity. Which one you choose determines everything. Scarcity is a story. Abundance is a decision. You must reprogram yourself. If you want abundance, you must reprogram your subconscious. Not once, not with a motivational quote, not with a single audiobook, but daily, relentlessly, repeatedly. Here's what that looks like. 1. Question every scarcity belief you inherited. Every time you think, I can't, ask, who told me that? Every time you think, it's too late, ask, where did I learn that? Most of your limitations are recycled lies. 2. Focus on expansion, not fear. Stop asking, what if I lose? Start asking, what can I build? Your brain expands in the direction of your questions. 3. Act like someone who expects growth, not loss. This is where everything shifts. Your actions need to match the future you want, not the fears you were taught. Scarcity is reactive. Abundance is intentional. When you move with intention, the world responds. When you stop chasing, things come toward you. When you stop clinging, things stay. When you stop doubting, opportunities appear. Not magically, not instantly, but inevitably. Releasing scarcity is the door to receiving. You can't receive with clenched fists. You can't grow if you're gripping the past. You can't rise if you're anchored to the beliefs of your childhood. You want abundance? Let go. Let go of the idea that success is rare. Let go of the belief that more for someone means less for you. Let go of the fear that you aren't enough, don't know enough, or don't deserve enough. Scarcity is the weight. Abundance is the lift. One keeps you grounded, the other helps you rise. And rising is your natural state. Not because you're lucky, not because you're special, but because abundance is the default condition of a mind that isn't poisoned by fear. Scarcity is a story. Abundance is a decision. Make the decision. You've now exposed the truth. Scarcity was never yours. It was given to you. And today, you begin returning it. You've started rewriting the narrative. Now it's time to address the next level of transformation, not just how you think, but how you move. You broke the illusion of lack. Now let's talk about the power of release. Chapter 5. The frequency of receiving. You want more. More wealth. More opportunities. More freedom. But the real question is this: are you emotionally available to receive it? Most people aren't. Most people are asking for a life they're not internally aligned with. Most people pray for abundance while living in the emotional frequency of fear, doubt, and unworthiness. You don't receive what you want. You receive what you're available for. Receiving is not an action. Receiving is a state. Match the frequency. That's the key. You can chase wealth all day. You can grind, hustle, and push. But if your emotional state contradicts the wealth you're asking for, you'll sabotage every breakthrough. It's not about effort. It's about alignment. It's not about desire. It's about identity. You have a choice. You always have a choice. Match the frequency, because receiving is a state. The emotional threshold of wealth. Every person has an emotional threshold, a limit on what they allow themselves to hold. You've seen it. Someone receives a sudden increase in money, a big raise, a bonus, a business windfall, and within months it's gone. Not because they're irresponsible, not because they're unlucky, but because their inner identity didn't rise with their external circumstances. Their internal frequency was still set to survival, not expansion. Still set to barely enough, not more than enough. Still set to fear of losing, not confidence in holding. You can't hold what you haven't become. You can't maintain what you don't feel worthy of. You can't receive beyond the level of your self-permission. You don't need their permission. You need your own. This is why people self-sabotage right after a breakthrough. Because the breakthrough came, but their identity stayed behind. Match the frequency. Receiving is a state. Your identity dictates your capacity. People think wealth is a numbers game. It's not. Wealth is an identity game. Read that again. Wealth is an identity game. Your identity decides how much you tolerate, how much you accept, how much you believe you deserve, how much you allow to enter your life without sabotaging it. You can increase your income instantly, but you cannot instantly increase your identity. Identity is built. Identity is trained. Identity is expanded. This is why personal growth matters more than tactics, because your external world can only rise to meet your internal world, never higher. You want more? Become more. You want to hold more? Stretch your emotional capacity. You want to receive what you've been praying for? Align with it. Match the frequency. Receiving is a state. That's the key. Why you block your own blessings. Nobody talks about this, but I will. Most people block abundance because abundance feels unsafe. Let that sink in. When you're used to struggle, ease feels suspicious. When you're used to scarcity, overflow feels foreign. When you're used to disappointments, receiving feels dangerous. Your subconscious whispers, "This won't last," and you obey it. So you sabotage, you shrink, you overspend, you hesitate, you destroy what you just built. Not because you're broken, because you're misaligned. Your nervous system is calibrated to the frequency of your past, not your future. You're trying to hold wealth with hands shaped by survival. It won't work. Receiving requires expansion. Receiving requires openness. Receiving requires emotional safety. You must teach your body that abundance is safe. You must teach your mind that overflow is normal. You must teach your identity that more is allowed. Match the frequency. Receiving is a state. The alignment formula. Let's get practical. You want to receive more? You must do 3 things. 1. Regulate your emotional state. If your body lives in stress, fear, doubt, and panic, you push receiving away. A dysregulated nervous system cannot hold abundance. It's not about weakness, it's about biology. Slow down. Breathe. Create safety internally. Calm expands capacity. Calm increases your receiving threshold. 2. Act like someone who expects wealth, not someone who fears it. Your behavior should reflect your future, not your past. Spend intentionally. Speak confidently. Ask boldly. Decide powerfully. Your actions tell the universe what you believe you're ready for. Act from scarcity, you shrink. Act from abundance, you attract. You have a choice. That's the key. 3. Normalize the feeling of more. You must emotionally adjust to the idea of expansion. Visualize it daily. Feel it. Hold it. Experience it internally before it arrives externally. Because receiving is a state. Match the frequency. Why some people receive with ease. You've met people who always seem to get lucky. Opportunities find them. Money flows to them. Doors open for them. It's not luck. It's alignment. They expect good things. They welcome good things. They hold good things. Their emotional baseline matches the reality they desire. They don't chase. They don't cling. They don't fear loss. They trust themselves. They trust their identity. They trust their capacity. They match the frequency. That's the key. You can do the same the moment you stop living alayhi salam, the old version of yourself. Expanding into more. Whatever you want is already available, but availability doesn't matter if you're not aligned enough to receive it. It's like trying to tune into a radio station on the wrong frequency. You'll hear noise, static, chaos, but the moment you tune in precisely, clarity. Wealth works the same way. You tune in emotionally. You align internally. You become the version of yourself who can hold the thing you want. Receiving is not passive. Receiving is not accidental. Receiving is intentional alignment. You're not waiting on abundance. Abundance is waiting on you. Match the frequency. Receiving is a state. You must become the person who can hold what's coming. This is the truth you must internalize. The universe will not give you what you cannot hold. Not because it wants to deprive you, because it wants to protect you. Wealth without identity destroys people. Success without inner stability collapses. Abundance without emotional maturity becomes chaos. You must become the person who can hold what's coming. That's the work. That's the discipline. That's the transformation. It's not about wanting more. It's about becoming more. You have a choice. Align with the version of you who is ready. Ready to receive. ready to expand, ready to hold. Match the frequency. Receiving is a state. Chapter transition. Now you understand the truth. Receiving isn't random. Receiving isn't luck. Receiving is alignment, emotional, mental, and energetic. You've learned how to tune into the frequency of abundance. Now it's time to learn how to maintain it, protect it, and expand it without fear. Chapter 6. Release control to gain control. You've been taught your whole life that control equals power. Control your outcomes. Control your environment. Control every detail. But here's the paradox you were never told. The more you try to control everything, the less control you actually have. The moment you release control, you gain it back. Let that sink in. Let it hit the part of you that's exhausted from holding too tightly. Because the truth is simple. Let go to rise. Surrender creates power. You think control protects you, but it traps you. You think control guarantees success, but it suffocates momentum. You think control keeps you safe, but it keeps you small. You have a choice. Control everything and burn out, or release control and rise. That's the key. The illusion of control. Most people don't want control. They want certainty. They want reassurance. They want guarantees. But here's the truth you must accept. Control is not certainty. Control is an emotional addiction, an attempt to manage fear instead of mastering it. The more you cling, the more life resists. The tighter your grip, the faster things slip. Attachment becomes panic. Panic becomes chaos. Chaos becomes collapse. You don't need more control. You need more trust. Trust in your plan. Trust in your process. Trust in yourself. You don't need their permission. You need your own. Let go to rise. Surrender creates power. Why micromanaging destroys your momentum? Let's talk about entrepreneurs, because they're the perfect example. The ones who fail the fastest? The ones who try to control everything. Every detail. Every decision. Every move. Every outcome. They burn out. They stagnate. They suffocate their own growth. Because micromanagement is fear disguised as standards. It's insecurity hiding behind high expectations. It's lack of trust wearing the mask of perfectionism. You can't scale what you're strangling. You can't grow what you refuse to release. You can't rise while gripping everything with white-knuckle panic. Meanwhile, the people who trust their systems, the ones who hire, delegate, automate, and detach, they expand, they multiply, they scale with ease. Because they understand the truth. Control limits. Structure liberates. Surrender accelerates. Let go to rise. Surrender creates power. Your need for control comes from fear. Let's get brutally honest. Your need for control comes from fear. Fear of failure. Fear of judgment. Fear of uncertainty. Fear of losing what you worked for. But fear is not a strategy. Fear is not leadership. Fear is not power. Fear locks you into survival mode. And nothing grows in survival mode. Not your wealth, not your opportunities, not your identity. It's not about fear, it's about discipline. The discipline to trust. The discipline to release. The discipline to allow. You have a choice. Clench in fear or open in strength. Let go to rise. Surrender creates power. The strategic surrender. Understand this clearly. Surrender is not weakness. Surrender is strategy. It's intentional. It's calculated. It's precise. Strategic surrender says, I no longer micromanage the path. I focus on alignment. I focus on direction. I focus on execution. And I let the process unfold. You stop obsessing over the how. You commit fully to the what. You support it with your who. This is power. This is maturity. This is growth. You stop forcing. You start flowing. You stop strangling. You start scaling. Let go to rise. Surrender creates power. The entrepreneur example, a lesson in letting go. Think of the entrepreneur who tries to control every part of their business. Every email, every tiny decision, every system, every outcome. They collapse under the weight of their own grip. They burn themselves into the ground, not because they're untalented, but because they refuse to trust anything outside their hands. This is why they stagnate. This is why they break. This is why they never scale, because control becomes their prison. Now look at the entrepreneur who releases control, who trains people, who trusts people, who builds systems that run without them, who delegates with confidence. They rise. They expand. They scale into realms the controller can't even imagine, because their power comes from trust. Trust in their systems. Trust in their vision. Trust in themselves. Let go to rise. Surrender creates power. Why letting go works? Releasing control works for one reason. Your subconscious relaxes. When you stop gripping outcomes, you stop broadcasting desperation. You stop signaling fear. You stop emitting chaos. You shift into a calmer frequency, a frequency aligned with power, a frequency aligned with abundance, a frequency aligned with flow. And wealth moves toward calm. Opportunities move toward calm. Solutions move toward calm. When you release control, you move from fear to faith, from scarcity to strategy, from tension to clarity. You have a choice: control or clarity, clinging or rising. Let go to rise. Surrender creates power. What you must do now. Here's your transformation checklist. Do not ignore this. 1. Release micro-control. Stop managing things that don't matter. Stop obsessing over outcomes. Stop tightening your grip out of fear. Breathe. Loosen. Allow. 2. Build systems, not stress. Systems are the cure for control. Systems give you space. Systems give you power. Systems let you detach without collapse. 3. Delegate with confidence. Trust others. Trust the process. Trust your own ability to handle whatever happens. You don't need their permission. You need your own. 4. Focus on identity, not details. You're not trying to become a controller. You're trying to become a leader. Leaders trust. Leaders release. Leaders rise. Let go to rise. Surrender creates power. This is your turning point. You have been gripping your life too tightly. You have been trying to force outcomes, trying to control timing, trying to micromanage destiny, and all it has done is exhaust you. Today, that ends. Today, you release the illusion. Today, you step into strategic power. Control is fear. Release is strength. You have a choice, and you know which one leads to your next level. Let go to rise. Surrender creates power. Chapter Transition. You've learned the power of releasing control. You've learned that surrender is not weakness, it's leverage. Now it's time to understand the next truth. You cannot rise without mastering the discipline of emotional stillness. You've released the need to control. Now learn to command your inner world. Chapter 7. The Discipline of Stillness. Chapter 7. The Wealth Identity Blueprint. Wealth is not the money you hold. Wealth is the identity you operate from. And identity comes first, always. Most people don't fail because they lack strategy. They fail because they never upgraded the identity making their decisions. You can't out-earn the person you believe you are. You can't rise above the ceiling you set inside your own mind. Identity creates income. Remember that. Repeat it to yourself until it becomes uncomfortable. Because it should be uncomfortable. Growth always feels like pressure at first. There is a reason you sabotage opportunities. There is a reason you hesitate when abundance shows up. There is a reason you shrink when life gets bigger than your old story. It's not luck. It's not fate. It's identity. If your identity is built on fear, you will protect fear. If your identity is built on scarcity, you will defend scarcity. If your identity says, "I don't deserve this," you will push it away, quietly, automatically, without noticing. That's why this chapter matters. Because you're not just trying to get wealthy, you're trying to become the kind of person who can hold wealth without dropping it. And that begins with one truth. You have a choice. You can choose to keep living a lie Islam, the person shaped by your past. Or you can choose to shape a new identity, one built for abundance, discipline, and strength. That's the key. Your identity dictates your tolerance for wealth. Everyone has a financial thermostat, a limit, a comfort zone, an invisible boundary of how much they believe they're allowed to earn, save, or keep. People don't lose money because of the market. People lose money because their identity is still programmed for survival, not prosperity. If you were raised hearing, "Money is dangerous. People like us don't get rich. Be grateful for what you have and don't want too much." Then you carry that into adulthood. You don't even realize how deeply it affects you. You start treating money like a threat. You reject opportunities that feel too big. You downplay your value so you don't seem arrogant. You avoid wealth because you believe wealth will expose you. But here's the truth. You're not scared of money. You're scared you won't match the identity that wealth requires. That's the real fear. The fear of leveling up your self-image to meet a bigger life. Identity drives everything. Identity creates income. You push money away when you don't feel worthy. Let's go deeper. Someone who feels unworthy of wealth will unconsciously sabotage it. They'll procrastinate on important tasks. They'll spend impulsively. They'll avoid learning financial skills. They'll stay in environments that limit them. Because the subconscious has one mission: keep you aligned with the identity you believe you are. If you believe you're someone who always struggles financially, you will behave in ways that recreate struggle. If you believe you never get lucky, you won't recognize opportunity when it's right in front of you. If you believe success isn't for people like me, you'll play small, softly, quietly, consistently. You're not cursed, you're conditioned, and conditioning can be rewritten. That's the key. Be the person before you see the result. People wait for proof before they step into a new identity. They think, when I earn more, then I'll feel successful. When I get disciplined, then I'll act disciplined. When life gets easier, then I'll be confident. That's backwards. You act first. You embody first. You choose the identity first. Be the person before you see the result. A wealthy identity doesn't wait. A wealthy identity doesn't ask permission. A wealthy identity doesn't negotiate with fear. A wealthy identity asks one question: what would the person I'm becoming choose right now? And then it chooses that, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Identity is a decision, not a reward. How to rebuild your wealth identity. This is where transformation happens. Not in your dreams, not in your plans, in your daily identity choices. Here's the blueprint. 1. Rewrite your internal narrative. Catch every sentence in your mind that begins with, "I'm just the kind of person who," because that's your subconscious speaking. Replace, "I'm not good with money." 2. "I'm learning the skills that wealthy people master." "I always fail." 2. "I'm becoming someone who follows through." "I get anxious about big decisions." 2. "I'm training myself to choose boldly." Language is identity. Identity creates income. 2. Change your financial habits. Identity behavior first. The richest identity doesn't start with millions. It starts with behaviors. Tracking money, honoring commitments, choosing discipline over impulse, investing in skills, protecting your time, finishing what you start. These are identity signals. They tell the subconscious, this is who we are now. 3. Upgrade your environment. Your identity is shaped by what surrounds you. If you stay around people who fear ambition, your identity will shrink. If you stay around people who normalize laziness, your identity will collapse. Surround yourself with responsibility, discipline, and high standards. Environment reinforces identity. Identity creates income. 4. Set identity-based rules. Not goals, rules. Goals create hope. Rules create identity. Examples: I don't negotiate with my morning routine. I finish every task I start. I save before I spend. I choose clarity instead of chaos. Identity is a set of behaviors you no longer question. Your new identity must be non-negotiable. You don't need the world's approval to become someone new. You don't need your past's permission to evolve. You don't need validation to rise. You only need a choice. A choice to stop living through the lens of who you used to be. A choice to adopt the identity that aligns with your future. Because wealth is not an amount. Wealth is a standard. Wealth is a discipline. Wealth is an identity. And if you're willing to step into that identity fully, consistently, unapologetically, your life will change faster than you expect. Identity creates income. Identity creates opportunity. Identity creates your destiny. That's the key. Transition to next chapter. You've built the foundation of who you must become. Now it's time to strengthen the internal power that sustains that identity. Next, Chapter 8, The Discipline of Emotional Control. Let me know when you want Chapter 8, and I'll generate it with the same depth, tone, and structure. Chapter 8, Flow State, The Wealth Accelerator. There is a state of mind where discipline becomes effortless, where productivity feels natural, where you stop forcing outcomes and start creating them. That state is flow. And if you want effortless success, you must learn how to enter it on command. Flow is not magic. Flow is not talent. Flow is not something reserved for the gifted or the lucky. Flow is a skill. Flow is a practice. Flow is a choice. Flow over force. Remember that. Say it again. Flow over force. Most people chase success using brute strength. They push, they stress, they burn themselves out, and then they wonder why they make so little progress. It's simple, because force drains you. Flow empowers you. When you operate from force, everything feels heavy. When you operate from flow, everything feels aligned. That's the key. Flow is the wealth accelerator. Look at world-class athletes. Look at legendary artists. Look at high-performing CEOs. They all know the same secret. Ease increases output. Not laziness, not indifference. Ease. Ease is the byproduct of alignment. Your mind, your focus, your identity working together instead of fighting each other. When you're in flow, time disappears. Self-doubt disappears. Distraction disappears. All that remains is presence and performance. You don't need constant motivation. You don't need endless discipline. You only need momentum. Pure, clear, consistent momentum. Flow is where momentum lives. Flow is where creativity expands. Flow is where wealth compounds. And you can train yourself to get there. Why most people never enter flow. Flow requires clarity, but most people live in chaos. Flow requires focus, but most people drown in noise. Flow requires intention, but most people stay reactive. They wake up overwhelmed. They live distracted. They operate in survival mode, and they hope that someday, somehow, success will just happen. But nothing effortless comes from a disordered mind. You must create internal conditions that support your highest performance. And here's the truth. You have a choice. You can choose chaos, or you can choose clarity. You can choose distraction, or you can choose focus. You can choose force, or you can choose flow. Every day, every moment, you decide which state governs your life. The 3 barriers to flow. To enter flow, you must remove the friction. There are 3 types of friction that kill your ability to perform. 1. Mental friction. Overthinking. Self-doubt. Unresolved emotions. A constant, noisy inner critic. When your mind is cluttered, your focus is shattered. You can't enter flow if your thoughts fight you. 2. Environmental friction. Notifications. Messy surroundings. Interruptions. The wrong people in your space. Flow dies in a chaotic environment. Your surroundings signal your brain. If your environment is scattered, your focus collapses. 3. Behavioral friction. Multitasking. Lack of routines. Checking your phone. Avoiding deep work. Your behaviors shape your state. If your actions contradict clarity, you'll never reach flow. This is why high achievers protect their flow state like their lives depend on it, because their success does. The path into flow, a step-by-step system. You don't stumble into flow, you build it, you engineer it, you create the conditions that make excellence inevitable. Here's how you do it. Step 1. Define one target. Flow requires singular focus, not 5 tasks, not 10 goals, one target. Ask yourself, what is the highest impact action I can complete right now? And then commit. You don't need their permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You only need clarity. Step 2. Remove every distraction. Turn the phone off. Close every tab. Block notifications. Clear your table. Make space. Your mind cannot enter flow when your world is loud. Silence is not optional, it's foundational. Step 3. Give yourself a time boundary. Flow loves structure. Set a timer. 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes. No interruptions. No breaks. Deep focus only. This forces your mind to enter the zone because it knows there's no escape. Step 4. Eliminate micro-resistance. Micro-resistance is that tiny voice saying, later, Tomorrow. Maybe after I check my phone. Kill it. Act immediately. Execution is the signal your subconscious needs. Remember, it's not about motivation. It's about discipline. Step 5. Fade into the work. At first, you will feel a little resistance. That's normal. Keep going. Around the 5 to 7 minute mark, something shifts. Your mind locks in. Your breathing stabilizes. Your awareness sharpens. And suddenly, you're in. This is flow. This is the zone. This is where effortless success begins. Flow makes wealth feel natural. When you're in flow, you produce more in one focused hour than most people produce in an entire scattered day. Flow is not about speed. It's about power. The power of a mind operating at full clarity. When you work from flow, your decisions become sharper. Your ideas become clearer. Your output becomes higher. You stop fighting yourself. You stop resisting your work. You stop dragging your feet through your own potential. Flow is where you finally meet the version of you capable of creating wealth with less struggle. Because wealth doesn't come from stress. Wealth comes from consistency. And consistency becomes effortless when you live in flow. Ease increases output. Never forget that. Flow is a daily practice. You don't need a perfect life to enter flow. You don't need a perfect schedule. You need intention. Every day, choose alignment. Choose clarity. Choose deep work. Flow rewards the disciplined, not the talented. Flow rewards the focused, not the frantic. Flow rewards the grounded, not the overwhelmed. You have a choice. You always have a choice. Flow over force. Ease over chaos. Discipline over impulse. This is how you accelerate wealth. This is how you reduce stress. This is how you move from surviving to thriving. That's the key. Transition to the next chapter. You've learned how to create internal momentum. Now, it's time to understand the external fuel that keeps your life expanding. Next, Chapter 9. The Power of Strategic Isolation. Say, next chapter, and I'll write Chapter 9 in the same tone, style, and depth. Chapter 9. The Art of Non-Resistance. There is a truth most people never learn. A truth that determines whether your life expands or contracts, whether wealth comes easily or slips through your fingers, whether you evolve or stay stuck for years. Here it is. What you resist persists. Say it again. What you resist persists. You can't fight your way into abundance. You can't argue your way into growth. You can't resent your way into transformation. Resistance keeps you locked in the very reality you're trying to escape. And most people don't even realize they're resisting. They think they're fighting for a better life. They think they're pushing toward success. They think frustration means effort. But in truth, frustration is friction. Friction slows you down. Friction drains your energy. Friction collapses your clarity. Resistance is the enemy of wealth. Neutrality is the cure, because neutrality is power. What is non-resistance? Non-resistance is not surrender. It's not weakness. It's not apathy. Non-resistance is emotional neutrality. It's the ability to observe your situation without letting it control you. It's the willingness to stop feeding energy into the problem and start directing energy into the solution. Resistance is emotional tension. Non-resistance is emotional clarity. And clarity creates results. When you're neutral, you see better. When you're neutral, you think better. When you're neutral, you act better. That's the key. You don't need to love your situation. You don't need to pretend everything is perfect. You just need to stop fighting what already exists. Because what already exists is feedback, not a prison. The trap of resistance. Look around you. Most people live in constant resistance. They resist their bills. They resist their debt. They resist their past mistakes. They resist their lack of money. They resist their current reality. And they wonder why nothing shifts. It's simple. What you resist persists. When you hate your financial situation, you keep repeating it. When you obsess over what's missing, you attract more lack. When you constantly focus on problems, you enlarge them. Resistance is attention. Attention is energy. Energy is creation. When you resist, you recreate the same patterns again and again. Let this sink in. You don't stay stuck because life is unfair. You stay stuck because you keep feeding the problem with your emotions. But you have a choice. You can continue resisting. Or you can drop the tension and choose neutrality, the emotional state where transformation becomes possible. Debt, lack, struggle. Why resistance makes it worse. Think of the people who obsess over debt. They check their balance every day. They panic. They stress. They spiral. What happens? Their behavior matches their fear. They make rushed decisions. They overspend to cope. They avoid opportunities because they feel unworthy. They sabotage every chance to rise because their mind is locked in survival. Resistance strengthens the chains. But the person who stops resisting, the person who says, "This is where I am and I'm not fighting it anymore," that person finally becomes available for change. Neutrality unlocks solutions. Neutrality activates creativity. Neutrality calms the nervous system so the mind can actually think. Neutrality is power. Why non-resistance creates wealth faster? Wealth responds to stability. Wealth responds to clarity. Wealth responds to grounded action. When you're neutral, you stop leaking energy. You stop reacting emotionally. You stop drowning in fear-based decisions. And suddenly, your path becomes visible. Here's the secret the wealthy understand. Money flows to regulated nervous systems. Because regulated systems see opportunities clearly. They make decisions calmly. They take consistent action. They trust the process instead of fighting it. Pressure collapses wealth. Neutrality expands it. When you stop resisting your situation, you stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, everything accelerates. How to practice non-resistance today. Non-resistance is a skill, a muscle, a practice. You don't learn it once. You build it daily. Here's how. 1. Name what is without emotion. Say the truth without drama. I'm in debt. I feel behind. My finances need work. No judgment. No shame. Just facts. Facts move you forward. Emotion keeps you stuck. 2. Stop telling the story of struggle. Every time you say, "I'm broke," "I never have enough," "life is unfair," you reinforce resistance. Scarcity is a story. You don't have to repeat it. Replace it with neutrality. This is my current stage and I'm improving it. Neutral, centered, powerful. 3. Release emotional tension physically. Resistance lives in the body. Your jaw tightens. Your chest hardens. Your stomach knots. Before you make a financial decision, pause. Breathe. Loosen your shoulders. Unclench your jaw. Regulate your state. Your decisions will transform instantly. 4. Shift focus to what you can control. Resistance comes from focusing on what you can't change. Neutrality comes from shifting attention to what you can influence. You can control your discipline. You can control your habits. You can control your spending. You can control your learning. You can control your energy. You have a choice. 5. Practice allowing instead of forcing. When something doesn't go your way, don't fight the moment. Ask yourself, what is this teaching me? What is the next best step? What does this feedback reveal? This keeps you grounded. This keeps you strategic. This keeps you powerful. Force creates tension. Flow creates opportunity. Non-resistance makes you magnetic. When you stop resisting, you stop radiating desperation. People feel it. Opportunities feel it. Money feels it. Desperation repels. Neutrality attracts. Because neutrality signals confidence. It signals self-control. It signals readiness. When your energy stabilizes, life reflects that stability back to you. Your income stabilizes. Your habit stabilizes. Your opportunity stabilizes. That's the power of non-resistance. You don't need to fight. You need to allow. Remember this. Transformation doesn't happen through tension. Transformation happens through alignment. You don't need more force. You need more clarity. You don't need more anxiety. You need more neutrality. You don't need their permission. You need your own discipline. It's not about frustration. It's about focus. It's not about resistance. It's about regulation. It's not about force. It's about flow. You have a choice. Choose wisely. Transition to the next chapter. You've learned the energy of release. Now it's time to learn the strategy of elevation. Next, Chapter 10, The Discipline of Silence. Say, next chapter, and I'll write Chapter 10 in full. Chapter 10, Letting Go Makes Space for More. There is a final truth you must understand before you walk away from this audiobook. A truth that completes the paradox of wealth. A truth that separates those who rise effortlessly from those who fight endlessly. Here it is. Empty hands receive more. Say it again. Empty hands receive more. You cannot hold abundance when your grip is full of fear. You cannot welcome new opportunities while clutching old identities. You cannot step into expansion while dragging the weight of the past. Letting go isn't loss. Letting go is leverage. Letting go is creation. Let go to grow. This is the final lesson. This is the turning point. This is the moment where everything you've learned comes together. Why letting go creates expansion. People think holding on will keep them safe. They think clinging is control. They think attachment creates stability. But the truth is simple. Attachment is a cage. Clinging is fear. Holding on is self-sabotage. Growth demands space. Wealth demands space. Life demands space. When your hands are full of what no longer fits, you block everything that's trying to reach you. Old beliefs, old habits, old relationships, old environments, old fears. They take up room. Room you need. Room your future needs. Room your wealth needs. That's the key. You're not stuck because you lack opportunities. You're stuck because you're overfilled with leftovers from a version of you that no longer exists. You have a choice. Keep holding on, or create space for more. Letting go of identity, the hardest release. Most people don't struggle to let go of things. They struggle to let go of who they believe they are. They cling to an identity created in childhood, an identity shaped by trauma, an identity built from scarcity, an identity molded by survival. You may not realize it, but identity is the heaviest thing you carry. If you see yourself, alayhi salam, someone who barely gets by, you'll always live at the edge of collapse. If you see yourself, alayhi salam, someone who isn't good with money, you'll always sabotage your own finances. If you see yourself, alayhi salam, someone who doesn't deserve more, you'll always push abundance away. Identity creates income. Identity creates behavior. Identity creates the ceiling you keep hitting. When you let go of the identity that no longer serves you, you create the identity that elevates you. Let go to grow. Letting go creates the breakthrough. Think of the people who stayed in a draining job for years because they were terrified of the unknown. Their soul was tired. Their creativity was dead. Their potential decayed quietly. Then one day, they finally let go. They walked away. They said no more. They emptied their hands. And within weeks, their life opened. Opportunities they never imagined appeared. Energy returned. Momentum exploded. Why? Because release is a signal to life. It tells the universe you're ready. It tells yourself you're serious. It tells the world you have space for more. Empty hands receive more. The breakthrough didn't come because they added something. It came because they released something. Why holding on feels safe but isn't? Your brain hates uncertainty. It wants familiarity, even when familiarity hurts you. It wants routine, even when routine limits you. It wants the known, even when the known destroys your potential. This is why letting go feels uncomfortable. It threatens the ego. It disrupts the patterns. It forces expansion. But discomfort is not danger. Discomfort is evolution. It's not about fear. It's about discipline. It's not about clinging. It's about choosing. It's not about holding on. It's about rising. You have a choice. What you must let go of if you want more. Here's the truth you don't want to hear. Something in your life must be released for wealth to enter. Not because wealth requires sacrifice, but because wealth requires space. Here's what that usually means. 1. Let go of the old belief. I don't deserve success. I always mess things up. I'm not capable of more. These are mental viruses. Delete them. Replace them with discipline, not doubt. 2. Let go of emotional clutter. Resentment, regret, shame. These drain your state. These block the flow. These keep you small. Neutrality, not noise. That's the key. 3. Let go of misaligned relationships. Some people only fit the old version of you, not the elevated version, not the wealthy version, not the disciplined version. You don't need their permission. You need your future. 4. Let go of environments that limit you. Your habits are shaped by your surroundings. If the room you're in doesn't match the level you're aiming for, you will shrink to fit it. Choose rooms with standards. Choose rooms with momentum. Choose rooms with abundance. 5. Let go of your fear of expansion. Fear is just a story. Scarcity is just a story. But stories can't hold you unless you keep telling them. You have a choice. The emotional physics of letting go. Letting go triggers expansion because it shifts your internal frequency. Fear contracts. Doubt contracts. Attachment contracts. But release? Release expands. It raises your emotional availability. It increases your capacity for wealth. It signals readiness. You receive more when you can hold more, and you can hold more when you aren't clinging to what drains you. Receiving is a state. Expansion is a state. Wealth is a state. Let go to grow. The practice of making space. You don't need to let go of everything at once. You just need to let go of one thing today. One belief, one habit, one fear, one identity, one attachment. Start with this question. What am I holding on to that no longer serves my future? Answer it honestly. Then release it intentionally. You don't need drama. You don't need chaos. You don't need permission. You need clarity. You need space. You need courage. You are not losing. You are making room. Understand this deeply. Letting go is not rejection. Letting go is refinement. Letting go is alignment. You are not walking away from your life. You are walking toward your future. You are not losing anything essential. You are losing what limits you. Empty hands receive more. Let go to grow. That's the final paradox. That's the final lesson. That's the key to abundance. Transition to the closing of the audiobook. You've learned the ultimate principle. Now it's time to bring everything together in one final message. Next, the final closing, the 1-minute transformation. Say closing, and I'll deliver the full 1-minute ending script. You've just learned the truth the world hides from you. Wealth is not created through pressure. It's created through presence. The more tightly you hold, the more life slips through your fingers. But the moment you trust, release, and live from certainty instead of fear, the entire world rearranges to support you. You now understand the paradox. The more you let go, the more you receive. Let go of the chase. Let go of the scarcity. Let go of the fear that tells you you're not ready, because you are. Abundance comes to those who stop gripping and start allowing. It comes to the ones who can walk away, the ones who can breathe, the ones who can trust the flow of their own path. You don't need to force. You don't need to prove. You don't need to beg. You only need to align, to open, to receive. Now here's your challenge, your call to rise. For the next 7 days, release every fear-based thought the moment it appears. Replace it with one truth. Wealth flows because I flow. Do this and watch what begins to arrive. The paradox is real, and now it's yours.